doing nearly as well as their parents at this stage is that they're paying huge amounts, much more than their parents ever paid as a proportion of their paychecks, for education, higher education, or student debt, housing, for rent, healthcare, even transportation. All of these costs have increased faster than inflation. And at the same time, jobs are not paying that much more.
What exactly is wrong with this young generation? It turns out that the millennials born between 1980 and the mid-1990s aren't so wealthy and are in the worst financial shape than their parents. People usually have the idea that their children will be better than them. But do we really live by this idea? In fact, this generation is finding it difficult to get jobs, and those who even have jobs can only envision living the life their parents lived. And according to millennial Laura Gardiner, the timing of the financial crisis is particularly unfavorable for this generation. She says that this particular wage pressure struck millennials just at the era they expect their wages to be increasing very fast, in their early 20s. The situation is so tough for young people to the extent that it is so difficult to save to buy a house, not to mention starting their own families. And they prefer to live with their parents instead of purchasing their own homes in order to save money. To make matters worse, the country is currently in a raging recession, and the labor market situation is not favorable to them. How then did parents get rich? The things parents did to get ahead happened in another era. For instance, in the 1980s, putting money in the bank earned you 15% interest, and even if inflation were to reach 10%, a 5% return would still be possible, whereas you'd be lucky to even get 3% in this era. The baby boomers were able to gain wealth because of the thriving economy at the time, yet many claim that they didn't consider the future and left a damaged economy for future generations. But do you think this is true? Well, according to Joseph Sternberg, they contributed to it. Boomers voted for measures that benefited them while they were young. Strong family support networks, free or inexpensive higher education, and substantial social welfare were on their list of priorities. Now it makes sense why they are rich. And that's not all. Homes in the 1950s were essentially commodities, and the majority of the cost went into creating the building itself. So at that time, it wasn't out of the ordinary for a family automobile to cost more than the family home. Now let's flash forward. After 50 years, houses are now considered investments as much as they are places to live. According to research by Professor Sir John Hills of the London School of Economics, baby boomers are often net beneficiaries of the welfare state. That is, they will get more in benefits than they have contributed in taxes. These people have enjoyed tax reductions and a rise in welfare spending. Contrarily, due to the cuts made to state benefits during the recession period, future generations are expected to be net contributors throughout the course of their lives and receive less than they paid. The goal that the baby boomers actually aspired to accomplish for most of their political careers was to have both the market's producing power and the state's protecting authority. And as a result, numerous policies were created in the 1990s to try and direct a lot of investment towards specific economic sectors, like the tech economy. They also had ideas like the ownership society, which was heavily debated during the George W. Bush administration, and policymakers attempted to increase ownership for baby boomers who were worried about falling behind in the housing market by using the government's long arm and institutions like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The ownership society later fueled the housing bubble and made the economy unstable, leading us to this lingering crisis. Now millennials are lagging behind baby boomers in terms of wealth, and what could be the reason for this? Many have raised the opinion that the problem is a result of character flaws, saying the young generation still hops from one job to another, all in the name of finding their passion. Some say they are lazy, while others are of the opinion that the millennials would rather choose to spend too much money on very unnecessary things or on other luxuries than on things that could help them amass wealth. This may be true of a minority of millennials who spend the majority of their time on social media, and as much as this needs to be fixed, there are other factors that justify the fact that the millennials are up against some difficult odds. The Fed report itself shows that when incomes and other characteristics are taken into account, millennial spending patterns are not considerably different from those of the baby boomers. A research study also provided a clear analysis of the chance that people in the younger generations will become millionaires, and you can already guess what it looks like. not encouraging at all. People over the age of 62 have a 1.7 chance of becoming millionaires, whereas millennials under the age of 40 have a 1 in 55 chance. Awful, right? But it's the truth. This statistic is from a recent study by economists at the Center for Household Financial Stability at the St. Louis Fed. There is no argument for the fact that the 1980s generation faces the greatest risk of being a lost generation for accumulating wealth and is less likely to be wealthy than their parents were at the same age. But what could be the cause of this? The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis analysis suggests that the generation as a whole may have missed out on the economic opportunities that their parents and grandparents all took advantage of. Now let's take a closer look at the factors that could have contributed to the generational wealth gap and some ways to reverse it and escape the demographic curse. Some of the primary reasons gleaned from studying past wealth cycles are lack of affordability and economic crises. Unfortunately, millennials entered the workforce shortly after the 2008 financial crisis, which significantly reduced their lifetime earning potential. And this financial damage has made assets like real estate unaffordable for millennials, preventing them from building wealth as their parents did. On the other hand, it's as though the situation is going from bad to worse, as today's young people are poorer than the young people of the past. And while young people's salaries have been in decline, property prices have increased. The average property price rose by 152% in 20 years prior to 2015 to 2016. Yet, the net family income of those between the ages 25 and 34 only climbed by 22%. As a result, older people who previously owned homes have benefited, but young people have a very difficult time climbing the housing ladder. People born in the late 1980s had a home ownership rate of 25% at age 27, compared to 33% for those born just 5 years earlier, and 43% for those born 10 years earlier. But why is this so? The fact that many young people today, starting their careers in the years following the Great Recession and live their working lives in the shadow of what Brendan Brown refers to as the Great Monetary Experiment, makes the situation what it is now. The effects of the Great Recession itself, such as extended stretches of pervasive unemployment, are something they must cope with. As luck would have it, finding a job early on can be hard. And as a result, income growth is less rapid and the accumulation of wealth will not look so promising. Even with the jobs, millennials are confronted with a society that is particularly unfriendly to investing, saving, and buying a home because of the endless monetary activity characterized by asset inflation and close to zero interest rates. The Young Visible also highlighted the fact that one of the main issues is college debt, and in fact, it is quite agreeable. Several millennials told CNN that their education debts are hindering their ability to advance and that this was a problem that most of their parents weren't forced to deal with. Due to the fact that many members of this generation attended college and obtained graduate degrees in order to fill their employment gaps, they have been negatively impacted by the phenomenon of school debt. And guess who encouraged them? Their parents. Their baby boomer parents pushed them to borrow money to cover a large portion of that, reasoning that they would pay it off in the labor market eventually. And they are paying the price for it now. According to an estimate made by the Urban Institute, using data from the Federal Reserve Bank and focusing on those between the ages of 18 and 29, young families had an average college debt of $1,415 in 1989. And by 2016, the burden had risen to $13,039. And another thing that makes this situation more frustrating is the decline in earnings, as young adult workers today earn $10,000 less than young adults in 1989. So how is this fair? There has to be a way to improve things. This generational curse is not unbreakable, and although each person's path to financial security is different, there are strategies for acquiring assets and driving wealth accumulation, like prioritizing your career, maximizing your earning potential, and making savvy investments. The millennials can also plan ahead for the wealth transfer, as they are likely to inherit far more wealth than their parents or grandparents, although it includes a few clauses about whether or not a person's parents own valuable things, for instance, their home, and if so, how much it is worth. So be sure to get all your facts. Another strategy, according to experts, is that young people can adopt older people's habits, like saving for emergencies, paying off debt, avoiding high-interest loans, and investing money in higher-yielding investments to boost their chances of becoming wealthy. And who knows, opting for a low standard of living could also help. So grab the best bits of the baby boomer habits, ignore all of the luxurious tax benefits they have created for themselves, and get to work on your own financial goals. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get other fascinating details about the world around us. See you next time.